And this is S.K. Puri, your faculty for organization behavior. I welcome you all to this Edupedia World video, and I am extremely thankful that you are subscribing to Edupedia World video, and we give you all the knowledge, skills and tools and techniques for managing the organizations. Well, this particular lecture is one titled with the planned change and consolidating change. This is change management part 3. As we said that the change management is a 3-part video, and we have already dealt part 1 and part 2. We understood in our part 1 and part 2 that change is simply most important element in business management today. To remain competitive in increasingly aggressive markets, organizations, we have to adopt a positive attitude towards change. We have to learn the management tools and techniques for planning and implementing change, and this has been discussed thoroughly, and today we are going into the topic of planned change. Now let us go further. We very much understand that especially in the last 1 decade, technology has totally changed the way we act, the way we behave, the way our organizations interact. All these systems are automation is there, and we have to unleash the power of technology. Most of the changes which are taking place are because of the technology, the digital power. That is what we call digital India or e-governance that we are moving forward. I very much see very clearly that in the future every company will be tech company. That means they will be acting with technology. All their processes, whether it is procurement, manufacturing, research and development, or any other process of supplies or supply chain management, everything will be delivered through technology. Companies move to restructure their business models in a way that uses data to create value. We are moving from a linear to network business models, from dumb pipes to intelligent platforms. We have already seen the effect of social networking. We have seen the how the platforms like YouTube, which you are watching, or the blogging, the suppliers as well as the consumers both are co-creating the value. So that is called intelligent platforms. We are at a risk of being disrupted by digital economy, and peoples are the most important thing which is challenging for us in our organization behavior subject. You know, the products and services are becoming shorter in cycle, and disruptive technology means those products are coming which are totally replacing our old products and services. Hence, change management has become more and more important. In a short, I can say we are in continuous flux, and our workforce is also required like that, which is adaptable for change, and we have to build up that culture and climate or the environment of the organization which is change ready, which is ready to face the digital cultural shock and the disruptive products and technologies coming up in the markets. We have to be more creative, we have to be more innovative. This is asking for change in the way education is delivered to make students industry ready. Now our students are to be more creative problem solvers rather than learning by rote. Industry is facing an ecosystem requiring continuous innovation, idea generation, creative leadership, learning individuals as well as learning organizations. Now, what is a planned change? What is a planned change and what is unplanned change? You know, if the change is necessitated by the external forces, then we are forced to change in a crisis. It is not a planned change. But when we are deliberately bringing the change by conscious effort, it is a planned change. So we can proactively predict the ecosystem trajectories to bring a planned change instead of being reactive. This is what it is. The life is moving like that only. So we are more talking of the planned change here. Now this diagram shows that if we bring the change from inside by our own change agents and the leadership that we have, we don't employ an organization development consultant, OD consultant. But if an OD consultant is employed, they diagnose, and if we don't employ, we have to diagnose what are the gaps that are there within organizations which are to be filled up to have that change, and then after seeing those gaps we plan a change and then evaluate the change. Now what are the learning objectives or the goals? As we have said before we begin any lecture, it is customary for me to tell you what will be the learning objective of this particular lecture. Now this particular lecture will have theoretical pin-up as well as practical work and examples where we have to apply our knowledge so that we are very much comprehensively knowing what is the planned change. The learning objective of this particular lecture are fourfold. Number one, to understand Lewin's change model. This is a very famous theoretical model to understand change. Second is force field analysis. This is another one, a model of understanding the forces, external and internal, to go for a planned change. Then we understand the concept of organization development, OD, and ultimately, last but not least, how to consolidate change and bring a momentum in the change that we have brought, stabilizing the change rather. So now, what is a planned change? We know that we are having certain gaps in our culture, climate, or the processes or the structure of the organization. We have to fix up our goals. What changes we want? What is our goal for the change? We have to identify the demand for the change, that why the change has come. It is the change coming from the external forces, from our customers who are dissatisfied, from our technology, from the business. After identifying the demand for the change, we select the essential changes that we want to make. We have to justify that these changes are required. And then we understand the complexity of the change. All changes are not very simple and all changes are not very complex. So the complexity of the change is different with the different changes that we have to ask a lot of questions here to understand the complexity. Then we have to plan ways to involve people. As we say, people first. People are the basic thing. If people are not involved, we cannot do anything. Machines cannot bring the change. It is the people. So that is why organization behavior, the science or the behavioral science use is there in organization behavior to understand the psychology, the sociology, the group working, the social psychology, to see that how we involve people to make the change happens. Then we choose a time scale, that this is the time scale for making the change happen. We choose an action plan, and action plan is very much charted out. After all, it should be a very systematic manner the change is being drawn out. So then we anticipate the effects, and we say that from the systems concept of an organization doesn't live in isolation. It has got an external and internal environment, and so many subsystems are there in the internal environment and the external environment, and every change is affecting all the subsystems, internal or external. We have to anticipate what changes will bring what effects on the various subsystems. Then when we bring the change, there will be resistance that we have to anticipate before we are planning change, so that we understand through the forces that will happen. Then after that, the last point is the checking and testing the plans and then going ahead. Now, what is Lewin's change model? This is the first theory that we have to understand before bringing up planned change. The Lewin's change model says that wherever we are, whatever is there as what is, we have to unfreeze it. Because we have to move it, move that particular thing from that place to some desired place. That is the definition of the change. So unfreezing is to become motivated for the change. We do not want to change because we are in inertia. We are into the momentum of the previous status quo. We have to break that momentum of the previous status quo or the inertia. So that is called unfreezing. After the unfreezing process takes place, the changing starts happening. We are sufficiently motivated, our people are motivated, the organization is motivated to bring the change. So that is the changing process. After the change happens, the most important thing is refreezing. Refreezing is the process in which we bring the change, but we have to again freeze it. That means we have to stabilize after the change. We have to assimilate the change. We have to institutionalize the change. That is again refreezing. But then again some forces happen and we bring a second change. The change is a continuous process in an organization. This is another pictorial view. Unfreeze, ensure that the employees are ready for the change. That is unfreezing. Then the arrow goes to change, execute the intended change. Then the last one, refreeze, which I said recently or just now discussed, that ensure that the change becomes permanent. A change is said to happen when there is a relatively permanent change in the culture, in the climate, in the behavior, in the processes, in the structure happens. So that is called the refreezing. Now the examples of Lewin's change model, we can have 4 examples to discuss. The importance here is experience sharing. I want to share my experience on the various fields as a trainer, that how we saw the Lewin's model when we brought change in the organization where I gave consultancy or where I worked with them in my previous organizations in bringing up change. The 4 examples which I have taken for discussion is: number 1, to change over to cross-cultural management. Yes, the first example is to change over to cross-cultural management. Here earlier we were having only the domestic people as our customers, and the managers now have to interact with different educational and cultural background. For example, multinational or healthcare tourism, or multinational companies where Germans, Syrians, Americans, French people all work together. To change over to this requires a basic change in the organization, in the way we communicate, in the way we carry out business. The second is introducing e-commerce to a company working only on traditional manual system. This is a very big change, to shift from a manual system to e-commerce. Third example is going in for e-governance in rural area by the government agencies. Government agencies are bringing e-governance into digital India. Our government departments are facing a huge problem in making a change like that. Then the fourth is the shifting to a platform-based models from pipe-based traditional business models. This is all coming up because of the advent of the internet. Now in all these cases there has to be the Lewin model coming up. First we have to defreeze from the existing or the earlier or whatever is the present system, or the style or the culture or the climate or the way people process the things, the way structure is there, the way organization runs. From there, after unfreezing, we have to then defreeze it. For example, if we want to go in other examples, for example, in bringing e-commerce, then we have to train people or reskill them into use of technology and use of computers, then seeing how the e-commerce takes place, how do we e-tendering, how do we procure people or material, or even recruiting people through e-commerce or the e-governance. when we do all the processes through ERP system, whether it is managing materials or managing humans. Similarly, for e-governance, same thing, or for having cross-cultural management, we have to have a different kind of communication processes. So we see that when the change happens, there are so many forces which happen. That is called force field analysis, the second concept of our planned change. Force field analysis is a kind of analysis which is analyzing the forces which are acting during the change. That is called force field theory. There are two kinds of forces which are having. The driving forces likely to push change, and the restraining forces are the forces which are likely to restrain. Identify the number and the strength of both kinds of forces. You have to identify how many are the driving forces, how many are the restraining forces. We will see an example in the healthcare to understand this force field analysis. And this force field analysis will be very useful in decision making technique during the change management. It helps you to make a decision by analyzing the forces for and against a change, and it helps you to communicate the reasoning behind the decision. The left picture is showing the force field diagram, showing the driving forces and the restraining forces, and the length of the arrow is as per the intensity of the force. There is an equilibrium in the present status quo, and when the forces where the change are higher than the restraining forces, the change starts happening, and a disequilibrium happens till the change totally takes place. In the right hand side, we have an example of health services which are requiring the new equipment which are more IT driven, like hospital information system, or the MRI machines, or machines of robotics, surgery through robotics. Now here we see that the changes, the forces which are helping us are having 12 number in the first column, and forces which are restricting us are 10. So the force for the change is much more, so the change will start happening. The forces which are helping us is the patients want new services. There is the force now, the market force. The patient want better delivery, improved efficiency of patient care, and increased patient throughput, or control of rising staff and maintenance costs. We want better equipment with the maintenance cost is less. Now against this, there are forces which are restraining us. For example, because we are bringing new technology, there may be loss of staff, or over time staff frightened because of new technology. They have to reskill themselves, they have to learn new things, they are creating resistance, and then cost of introduction, new equipment, new training, and the disruption has already taken place. So you see the force field analysis beautifully in this example. Now let us come to the concept of organizational development. As we said that either you bring an OD consultant to bring the change, or you yourself manage the change by your leadership inside and the change agents and the change leadership. We have understood these concepts sufficiently in the last two videos on the change management. Organization development, OD, is a field of research, theory and practice dedicated to expanding the knowledge and effectiveness of people to accomplish more successful organizational change and performance. Basically, we want to increase the productivity of organization. We want to have better performance. So this definition is very much onto the people. As we say, the people are the basic things. You can always bring the machinery, but ultimately it is the people. The second definition is talking of OD is a collection of planned change interventions that seek to improve organization effectiveness and employee well-being. Organization effectiveness is paramount in OD. And OD, it says it uses knowledge gained from behavioral sciences, which are the basis of OD. And organization behavior is a field based on behavioral sciences. So OD becomes an important field of organization behavior. Some prominent OD interventions. This is carefully to be studied, and that what are the interventions we use in organization development. Let me explain them one by one. One by one, if we go, number one is sensitivity training. Now, what is sensitivity training? Sensitivity training. Now, you can see one thing, to come back to these 10 again, is this, that out of 10, the 7 up to 1 to 7 are individual based, and from 8, 9, 10 are the organizational based. Means the 1 to 7 are improving the individual, bringing the change in the individual, whereas 8, 9, 10 are bringing change in the organization. It's a structure. So again, we were talking of sensitivity training. Sensitivity training is a kind of T group training. It is a kind of laboratory training in which people are put together to understand their thought processes and the human processes they go through. So this is a training which is away from the job, and in a room we try to make them interact, and through interact the facilitator tells them about their behavior, about their emotions, and make them sensitive towards their own attitudes and behavior patterns and thought processes and the emotional patterns and the thought process, so they become more effective in interacting. Now, this is said that the sensitivity takes place in a laboratory setting, whereas actual work takes place on the shop or on the actual office. But the learning is taken from there to the shop. There is no problem. I have also myself given training on sensitivity or the T group training. It's a very beautiful, called the laboratory type of training, or the training in laboratory setup. The second tool is team building and team working. Here actually the teams are built, their teams are built, and their team working is observed. That how various teams they interact among other teams, means intergroup, and the second is intra-group. And once they set the goals and move towards that as a team, they learn through action. This is action learning, or we call action research, to understand what is happening in the group dynamics in the team. And through this learning, through the action learning, we learn how to have better team building and team working. Process consultation is a process or as an intervention where the consultant is brought and he observes your process. He observes how things take place, and then he gives you consultancy where are the lacunas. Well, role playing is a very great tool which is used in training when you bring them away from the work and give them some roles or enactment to play, or whether you give them a script or you don't give them a script. When you don't give them a script, that management tool is called improv. The improvisation is there when they play the role. When they play the role, they observe their feelings, emotions, actions, attitudes. And after that, after the role play, debriefing is done. During the debriefing, they understand where are the lacunas in their behaviors, in their belief systems, in their ideas. This is a great tool of OD. The next is MBO. MBO is when the seniors and the juniors sit together and fix up the objectives and the goals to be done, and then review our projects together, and then it is moving together. It is management by objective. It is more of learning together and moving together rather than any processes. It is to decide the objectives together and see that how we achieve. This is a great process of OD. When we start becoming more effective in achieving our goals. Grid development, I think you remember when we talked about the Black and Mountain model of leadership. Black and Mountain had the grid where there was two dimensions, the people oriented and the task oriented. In actual practice, the leadership styles are put onto this grid, And we see during the actual working that which leadership styles works best in the various departments or the various groups or teams. Survey feedback is again an individual kind of a thing. When we survey and see the values, the briefs, and whatever mindsets are not effective, those mindsets are to be broken, and the new mindsets are to be made when collectively and collaboratively the whole organization moves faster towards achievement of the goal of the change management. The last three are restructuring, job redesigning, and job enrichment. These three are the field of HRM. When you restructure the organization, when you redesign the jobs or the job analysis or the what is to be done, the task to be done in a job, or you enrich the job of the people by transforming here and there, by giving them opportunity to work on more skills. This is how the interventions take place. The process of organization development. When an OD consultant comes, or when you yourself want to bring the change, these are the 6 processes that you go through when you go for the organizational development. The very first thing is that you identify what is the change to be brought. Now, what is the change to be brought is the first fundamental. Once you do not understand identification of the problem, where is the problem? Now, is the problem is in culture and climate, rather saying that the culture of the organization is not motivational, or it is not people oriented, it is very much a control freak, or it is happening that in the organization culture there is disrespectful behavior, or there is too much of indiscipline. Then the problem is that we identify and see that this is where the change is to be happening, and hence we must identify the problem. After identifying the problem, you prepare for the change agents. As we have seen in the previous video, that some people are all the time ready for the change. They are the first 20% approximately, and the remaining are not on the board, but they will come on the board. Now these people they will have change agents within themselves who can percolate the change. You identify, you prepare them, you brief them what you want the change, identifying the problem, what gaps are there in the problem that you want to bring the gap, fill up those gaps, and hence after that you collect the data that where we are and how much is the gap which is required for the change. Then we give the data feedback and confrontation. We confront that these are the gaps, this is what the data says, where we have. For example, if in the culture there is too much of indiscipline, then what kind of discipline is required? Whether the procedures are not lined up, whether there is a confusion of the roles. If the data shows that there is too much of bullying, or there is too much of disrespectful behavior, the incidence of disrespectful behavior has gone up. Let us say in the case of a health care hospital, the bullying of the senior nurse to the junior nurse, the bullying of the doctor to the nurse, the bullying of the patient, the whole culture is wrong. So here, what is the data? How many times it is happening? Then you have to intervene and implement the change. You have to plan the change and then implement the change. And after that you evaluate and get the feedback. The last we were saying the consolidating change. Now what is consolidating change? Consolidating change is very important. After you bring the change, it is very much important that the change is stabilized, the change is assimilated into the culture and the climate of the organization, into the feelings and emotions and values and beliefs of the people. The change is totally taken place and it is institutionalized now. To bring that consolidation, this is what is consolidation means, that the change is now relatively permanent, and the change is set to take place when the behavior change has occurred. So here in consolidated change, I have listed 5 processes which you have to see. One is monitoring progress. When the change happens, you monitor it. You have planned a change. Then you are seeing the progress, how much it has changed. Those people who are resisting, out of them, how much has come to the board, on board for going for the change. Those people who are very anxious, those people who were depressed, they were fallen out. They have been brought into mainstream. Then it is again important to review our assumptions, what assumptions we have made earlier. That means, what were the aims? Do we achieve them? Does everyone still back them? What still needs to be done? Means we had achieved that every people will fall, everybody will fall. These are the goals. We can replan the whole thing. We can review our assumptions. Have we achieved? Are there more resources required? Is more training required? We are gaining experience as we are going through the change. Then maintaining momentum means the change which has come, now it has to build up the momentum. Then we have to build on this change that it becomes permanent. And then all this we have learned, our change management style. Maybe next time we have a better management style, change management style, the change management skills of our managers and the leaders. So to recap all the 3 videos that we had very clearly seen that there were some roadblocks which were coming in the change management. The very first roadblock that we said was the communicating change. The managers and the leaders are not able to brief what they want, what is required, what is the identification problem. It is to be communicated in a very clear-cut way. The communications are to be with the channels which are very open, from down to up and up to down. We have to assign responsibilities of the people who will bring small steps of the change in various departments. We have to have the change leaders. We have to identify the change leaders. We have to identify our plans, the steps of the plan, and then we have to develop a commitment from the people for the change. Then the culture is changing. We have to monitor it. The whole process was seen to be having resistance. So that force field analysis and limiting that resistance, we found that these 5 things were the major roadblocks. If these are not performed well, then the change management will not take perfectly. So change management is related to conflict management also. Change management is related to stress management, stress in the organization, that anxiety being created for reskilling, for retraining. And change management is a particular skill and gaining the whole process. We have to use organization behavior, that field which uses the behavioral sciences. So here I end my lecture, and I thank you very much for watching the Edupedia World Video, this particular lecture. And I must say that this is a collaboration between you and me for personal and professional growth. And I end here. Again, thank you. And if you like the video, please do subscribe to our channel Edupedia World. For more videos, log on to www.edupediaworld.com. Thanks once again.